Welcome to part 2 of Act 1, Scene 2 in Hamlet. We're going to pick up from the end of Hamlet's soliloquy and the entrance of Horatio, Marcellus, and Bernardo. So you should remember Horatio, Marcellus, and Bernardo from Scene 1. They were the men who were the witnesses to the ghost. So Horatio enters and says, "Hail to your lordship." So he calls Hamlet by his proper title there. Hamlet says, "I'm glad to see you well, Horatio, or I do forget myself." So we see from the start of the scene that they're... Horatio then continues the formalities by saying, "The same, my good lord, and your poor servant ever." Hamlet then spells it out for us by saying, "Sir, my good friend," and then asks him, why have you come from Wittenberg, Horatio? So that's the university that was mentioned in Scene 2, in the first part, where Claudius has forbidden Hamlet to go back to. So Horatio and Hamlet are basically schoolfellows together. Hamlet then greets Marcellus. Marcellus again returns the formalities with "my good lord," and Hamlet says, "I am very glad to see you." Then Hamlet greets Bernardo as well, but turns his attention straight back to Horatio, which is what he's really interested in. So he says, "But what in faith make you from Wittenberg?" Horatio kind of has a joke with Hamlet then and says, "A truant disposition, my good lord." So he's saying, "Oh yeah, I'm jigging." But Hamlet doesn't believe him. He says, "I would not hear your enemy say so, nor shall you do my ear that violence to make a truster of your own report against yourself. I know you are no truant." So he's saying, "I know you well enough to know you haven't just skipped school." And then continues to press the point, "But what is your affair in Elsinore?" And then we also see a side comment there of, "We'll teach you to drink ere you depart." So it seems that he thinks that Horatio is going to be his drinking buddy while he's here, which kind of continues that little motif we had of drinking from Claudius when he departs with Gertrude at, partway through Scene 2, just before Hamlet's soliloquy. Horatio then says, "My lord, I came to see your father's funeral." And Hamlet says, "Prithee, do not mock me, fellow student. I think it was to see my mother's wedding." So we still see the bitterness coming through here about Gertrude's marriage to Claudius so soon after old Hamlet's death. Horatio then says, "Indeed, my lord, it followed hard upon." So we know that Horatio is a fairly honest character here. He doesn't try and say anything to soften the blow. He just says it as it is. Hamlet then makes a little bit of a joke. He says, "Thrift, thrift," so it's kind of like they're trying to save money. "The funeral baked meat did coldly furnish forth the marriage tables." So he's saying, basically, it was so soon after that the meats that were made for the funeral could have easily just furnished the table for the wedding. And then he makes a strange comment at the bottom here where he says, "My father, methinks that I see my father." Horatio then says, "Where, my lord?" So remember, Horatio has seen the ghost at this point, the ghost in the likeness of Hamlet's father. Hamlet has not. So Hamlet says, "In my mind's eye, Horatio." So we see that there's hinting at the madness to come already early in this scene. Horatio then says, "I saw him once. He was a goodly king." So when it says the little art there, that can be a substitute for he. So Horatio is basically saying, I knew him. And then Hamlet says, "He was a man, take him for all in all. I shall not look upon his like again." So he's saying no one can compare to my dad. Horatio then takes a more serious turn in the conversation and says, "My lord, I think I saw him yesternight." Hamlet's surprised by that, obviously, and says, "Saw who?" Horatio says, "My lord, the king, your father." Hamlet then questions again, "The king, my father?" So you can kind of imagine the pace at this point is quite quick because we've got very short lines, and there also would be a bit of urgency in Hamlet's voice. So he's reacted rather impulsively to this revelation from Horatio at this point in the scene. Horatio then tells him slow down, so season your admiration for a while with an attent ear till I may deliver upon the witness of these gentlemen this marvel to you. So he's saying, slow down, hold your horses, let me tell you what's happened. Hamlet is still acting rather impulsively by saying, for God's love, let me hear. Horatio then goes into the description of what happened on that night. He says that Bernardo and Marcellus had seen the ghost before at the same time, and then he goes on to describe what he looked like and how they felt as they saw him. So they did fear the ghost, and then he is saying that they invited me to come and see the ghost to confirm that it is actually what it appears to be. And again, we have this idea of appearances and reality coming up with the apparition comes, and then the description here again confirms the identity of the ghost. I knew your father, these hands are not more like. Hamlet is still quite eager to hear more about this, so he questions, but where was this? Marcellus replies. Hamlet again, short questions. You can see Horatio is quite calm and calculated in the way that he tells the story, but Hamlet is obviously still in this impulsive mood. He wants to know as much as he can, as quickly as he can, and he seems quite excited by the whole situation. He then stops to almost pause for a moment with the phrase, "'tis very strange." And then Horatio says, as I do live my honoured lord, 'tis true. So we see here he actually takes a moment to question, which he hasn't up until this point. The questioning then continues on, but it's not so much questioning of did this happen, but more what are the details of what happened. So you can see where I've drawn those lines that Hamlet is then questioning Marcellus and Bernardo about the appearance of the ghost when they saw it. He's turning to Horatio as well and saying, are you sure you saw his face? Are you sure you knew who it was? And that's what all of those questions are about. And you can imagine the pace of the delivery at this point is probably very quick, in line with Hamlet's mood. So the very short sentences give us a clue as to how this character is feeling and how he's responding to this news. Again, continues on. More questions about what he looks like, how it appeared, blah, blah, blah. And then at the end here, the theme of appearances comes up again with Hamlet's line, if it assumed my noble father's person. So again, it's what it looks like, not what it actually is. So this fits in with the idea of apparition. This fits in with the word seems that was discussed earlier in the scene. So he's saying that he will speak to it if it looks like his father. And again, this connects back to the idea we were talking about with Elizabethan ghosts, how there are different types of ghosts. You can look that back up in Act 1, Scene 1. He then continues on by saying that he will meet the gentleman tonight, but he also asks them in the last line on the previous page to keep this conversation a secret up until now. So you can see that the pace of this speech that we've just had from Hamlet, this short speech, is quite different to the pace of the lines that he's been delivering on the last couple of pages, because the lines on the last couple of pages have really been no more than 1 or 2 lines each, whereas this is much more measured, much slower in pace. So he's actually made a plan of action here. But also he's trying to I suppose, calm himself and appear as if he is in control at this point. So this is a young man warring with his impulsive nature, his thoughtfulness, and his wish to develop his own identity as the king. So Horatio, Marcellus, and Bernardo leave. Hamlet says bye to them, and then we have another short aside from Hamlet down here, which switches back to the excitement that we saw earlier in the scene, where he says, "My father's spirit in arms, all is not well, I doubt some foul play." So this line here again is important because it's foreshadowing that something is not right in Denmark, and the word doubt in here actually means suspect. So he suspects that something has happened that probably shouldn't have. He's very impatient, as we see by the next line, "Would the night were come, till then sit still my soul. Foul deeds will rise, though all the earth overwhelm them to men's eyes." So this again foreshadows what Hamlet will probably discover very soon. So these lines are really important as they give us clues about things that are yet to come within the play. And that brings us to the end of Act 1, Scene 2.